Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Hussein and I'm a meal expert. In this session, I'll be guiding you through a really important topic, managing the impact evaluation process. Now, this is absolutely crucial for ensuring our development interventions are actually based on evidence. By the end of this tutorial, you're going to have a crystal clear understanding of how impact evaluations are planned, designed, managed, and interpreted. So stay with me until the end to get a complete picture of this important process. So let's start with the question that's at the heart of everything we do. You have a brilliant idea, right? Something you believe can genuinely make a difference in the world. But here's the kicker. How do you actually prove it's working? It's just not enough to have a great intervention. You need solid, rigorous evidence to show it's making the impact you claim. Okay, let's dive into this. And this right here is the absolute core truth of what we're exploring today. You can have the most sophisticated, statistically perfect design in the world, but if the actual process of managing the evaluation, the planning, the budgeting, the stakeholder meetings, if that all falls apart, the whole effort is at risk. Real success depends on getting the process right. So to get that process right, we're going to walk through the entire journey, step by step, from a manager's perspective. Think of this as our roadmap for today. We're covering the whole life cycle, from that first spark of an idea all the way to the final decisions, giving you a really clear path for your next impact evaluation. Okay, let's kick things off with our first section. It's so easy to get fixated on the technical design, right? The fancy stats. But here, we're going to establish why the management process itself is the unsung hero, the thing that's truly crucial for generating meaningful results. I love this analogy. Think of it like producing a movie. Your evaluation design, your methodology, that's the script. It's essential, of course, but you, as the manager, you're the producer. You're the one making sure the budget is handled, the team is in place, and the scenes are shot correctly. Without a good producer, even the best script in the world won't ever become a great film. Every great project starts with a great blueprint, and it's exactly the same for evaluations. So now, let's look at the critical first steps you have to take in the planning phase to build a rock-solid foundation for your study. These 4 steps are your bedrock. First, you have to ask the really tough questions. What do we really need to know here? What evidence is already out there? Then comes the reality check. Is this project even evaluable? Is our theory of change logical and sound? And only after that do you start to rally the troops and get everyone on board. Following these steps, make sure your evaluation is relevant, feasible, and supported right from day one. And getting that stakeholder buy-in, it's absolutely critical. We're talking about everyone, from high-level ministry officials down to the field staff and community members themselves. Getting their support isn't just about being polite. It's about protecting the integrity of your study on the ground. You need their cooperation to make sure the project rolls out as planned and to avoid things like contamination, where people in your comparison group accidentally get the intervention, which would just totally skew your results. So the crucial point here is to plan early. A prospective design, one that's planned before the project even starts, is almost always going to be stronger. It lets you collect clean baseline data, which helps you check if your treatment and comparison groups were similar from the very beginning. Plus, it opens the door to using the most rigorous evaluation designs, like random assignment, which we're about to get into. Okay, so you've done your planning. Now it's time to open up the manager's toolkit. How do you pick the right methodology for the job? We're not going to get lost in a bunch of academic jargon. Instead, we'll focus on the key decisions you, as a manager, have to make to land on the right approach. Really, the first big question you have to ask is this. Can you randomly assign who gets the intervention and who doesn't? If the answer is yes, you're on the path of an experimental design, like a randomized controlled trial, which is often called the gold standard. If random assignment isn't possible, maybe for ethical or logistical reasons, then you'll use what's called a quasi-experimental design. These use really clever statistical methods to create a credible comparison group when you can't create one through randomization. But remember, rigor must always be balanced with responsibility. You have to be able to justify having a control group that doesn't receive a potential benefit. You absolutely have to get informed consent, handle data responsibly, and be totally transparent in your practices. These ethical checks are not optional, they are non-negotiable parts of the process. All right, we've covered the why and the how. Now let's talk about the practical, real-world realities that can make or break an evaluation. We're talking money, time, and the people you hire to get the job done. Let's be clear, impact evaluations are a long-term commitment. This timeline shows a pretty typical 5-year project cycle. Notice how the evaluation work starts before the project even officially begins, and more importantly, the endline analysis happens after the project closes. You have to plan for this kind of long-term engagement from the very beginning. So what does all this cost? Well, according to the organization 3I, this is the average budget for a single impact evaluation study that they've supported. Rigorous evidence does not come cheap, and it's a figure you really need to be prepared for when you're in the planning stages. So where does all that money actually go? What's fascinating here is that two items just completely dominate the budget. Look at this chart. A massive 85% of the total cost is driven by just two things: conducting the surveys and hiring the expert staff. This tells you that getting high-quality data and top-tier expertise are the biggest drivers of your budget, by far. Now, choosing your research team involves a really key trade-off. Academic researchers might give you a more innovative, cutting-edge design, but they're often motivated by what's publishable. This can lead to something called researcher capture. That's when the research questions start to subtly shift towards what's interesting for a fancy journal article, rather than what your organization actually needs to learn to improve its programs. Consulting firms, on the other hand, are more likely to stick to the contract, but might be less innovative. It's crucial to define your questions clearly from the start to guide that partnership effectively. Okay, you've planned, you've budgeted, you've managed the team, and you've collected all the data. Now, for the most important part, the payoff. It's time to make sense of it all. What does the evidence actually tell us? First, we have to assess the validity of our findings in two ways. Internal validity asks, is the impact we measured real, and was it truly caused by our intervention for this specific group of people? Then, external validity asks the million-dollar question. Okay, great, but would this work somewhere else? A study can be perfectly valid internally, but have very limited application in other settings. I absolutely love this quote from the source material. It's such a powerful reminder when you're looking at a table full of results. It's so easy to get excited by statistically significant findings, the stars, but that's only half the story. Let's see why. So this number, it's all about confidence. It tells you how likely it is that your result is real, and not just some random fluke. But here's the trap. If you survey enough people, almost any tiny effect, even one that's completely meaningless in the real world, can become statistically significant. That's why we can't stop here. And this is exactly why we also need to look at the effect size. This number tells you the magnitude of the impact. How big was the change, really? For example, an effect size of 0.2 standard deviations in education. That's considered a good improvement. It's roughly equivalent to the learning gains from a full extra year of schooling. Now that is a policy-relevant number. It tells you not just if something worked, but how well it worked. And this chart brilliantly illustrates the final, most important step: putting it all together. The most powerful insights come when you combine the impact, that effect size, with the cost. Look at this study on increasing school attendance in Kenya. Giving out free uniforms works. For every $100 you spend, you get about 5 extra years of schooling. But simple deworming? For the same $100, you get over 20 years. This is how you find the most effective solutions. So if evidence is the engine of development, is effective management the key that starts the ignition? After everything we've walked through today, I think the answer is a resounding yes. It's the careful, thoughtful management of the entire journey that unlocks the true power of evidence. Thank you for watching this tutorial on managing the impact evaluation process. I hope this session helped you understand how these evaluations are planned, implemented, and managed effectively. If you found this useful and want to learn more about monitoring and evaluation and MEL frameworks, please subscribe.